picture this. You're out on a boat, the breeze is perfect, the water is glassy, and the coastline is just, starting to fade into this beautiful horizon.
Sounds pretty ideal.
Right. It is, until you pull out your phone to snap a picture and share it. And you look at the top corner of your screen and see 0 bars, total digital isolation.
Oh, yeah. That's where the panic sets in for a lot of people.
Exactly. I mean, for some, maybe that sounds like a vacation, but if you actually need to download an updated weather routing file or securely hop onto an emergency work call or just, maintain critical vessel systems, that sudden drop-off is a really serious problem.
It is, and it happens a lot faster than most people expect when they head offshore, because the ocean is just an incredibly unforgiving environment for technology, especially for something as, susceptible to interference as a radio frequency signal.
Which is exactly why we are jumping into this deep dive today. Our mission is to completely unpack the ultimate blueprint for taking your internet off the grid, specifically focusing on marine environments.
Right, and we've got some great material for this.
We do. Our source material today is a guide from Michael Robilio. He's a marine network architect and the founder of Marine Data Solutions, which is based right inside Safe Harbor at the Lauderdale Marine Center in South Florida.
Yeah, right in the thick of it.
Exactly. And according to his work, fixing this offshore dead zone isn't just about, buying a bigger antenna. It's actually a fascinating exercise in building what network engineers call a layered hybrid architecture.
I know. It sounds like really heavy engineering jargon, but layered hybrid architecture is actually a highly logical way to solve a really dynamic physical problem.
Oh, for sure.
You're essentially stacking different connectivity methods on top of each other, right? And each one compensates for the physical limitations of the others.
And I want to emphasize right up front why you, listening to this right now, should care about this. Even if you don't own a yacht or a center console or any boat at all.
Yeah, it applies everywhere.
It really does. Understanding how experts solve these extreme edge-of-the-world connectivity problems completely changes how you view the networks you rely on every single day. When you see how the invisible strings of the internet are, pulled together under pressure, your enterprise networking and even your home office setup suddenly make a lot more sense. Okay, let's unpack this.
We have to start with the fundamental obstacle, I think. Before we can solve anything, we need to understand exactly why the signal drops when you're surrounded by nothing but flat, open water.
Right, the invisible wall.
Exactly. There's this massive misconception that losing your signal offshore just means, oh, I have a weak phone. People assume they just need a newer device with a better modem. It's actually a battle against basic radio physics.
But wait, if I'm on flat water, my line of sight is perfect. There are no concrete parking garages, no skyscrapers, no mountains blocking the tower. From a pure physics standpoint, shouldn't the signal travel further over the ocean than on land?
It's a completely valid mathematical assumption, but it totally ignores the geometry of the planet and, the physical engineering of the cellular network itself.
The geometry of the planet, you mean the curvature?
Yeah, the curvature of the Earth. So while the signal path over the water is super clean, you simply cannot overcome that curve. From the perspective of your boat, as you travel further away, the curve essentially creates this giant hill of water between you and the cell tower.
Oh, wow. A hill of water. I never thought of it like that.
Right. And beyond that, terrestrial cellular networks are designed for population density. They aren't meant for maritime coverage. The antennas on those land-based towers have what's called mechanical and electrical down tilt.
Meaning they point down.
Exactly. They're specifically engineered to point their radio frequency energy down towards streets, highways, neighborhoods, not, parallel to the horizon out over the open ocean.
So the infrastructure is actively pointed away from you. And then eventually, the Earth itself acts as a physical wall, blocking whatever ambient signal is left.
What's fascinating here is how often users try to stretch a technology meant for land into a space it fundamentally wasn't engineered for. The source material points out that chasing a stronger phone signal at that point is just a fool's errand. You hit a physical wall.
So since we obviously can't flatten the Earth, the strategy shifts to, legally cheating physics to hold on to that coastal signal just a little bit longer before it drops off the curve, right?
That introduces the very first layer of the marine upgrade path, the nearshore layer. Because the absolute worst place to try and capture a degraded signal is inside a boat cabin.
Oh, yeah, all that material.
Fiberglass, carbon fiber, reinforced glass, interior electronics, it all creates massive attenuation. It just absorbs and scatters whatever weak signal is left. So the foundational solution is moving to a marine-grade external antenna mounted as high above the deck level as physically possible.
Basically trying to peek over the Earth's curvature. Okay, so if I'm doing that, the natural assumption is that bigger is always better. If I'm outfitting my boat, my instinct is to buy the absolute highest gain, most powerful antenna money can buy and stick it on the tallest mast to grab a signal from, like 30 miles away.
And doing that can actually ruin your connection.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The source material details are really crucial, kind of counterintuitive dynamic here regarding antenna gain and a boat's motion profile.
Okay, break that down for me.
So high-gain antennas work by compressing the radio signal into a very tight, narrow beam. If you are on a highly stable, say, 150-foot motor yacht with active stabilization, that narrow beam can stay perfectly locked onto the land tower.
Right. But if you put that same high-gain antenna on like a 30-foot center console that's just aggressively pitching and rolling in 6-foot swells,
the connection will completely exhaust itself. That narrow beam is just wildly sweeping across the sky and then plunging into the water over and over.
it's like trying to use a tightly focused laser pointer on a rocky boat versus using a wider flashlight beam.
That is the perfect analogy. The modem has to constantly work to reestablish the handshake with the tower, which destroys your data throughput. So for a vessel with heavy motion, you actually require a moderate gain antenna.
You trade the range for stability.
Exactly. You trade that tightly focused, long-range laser for a wider, more forgiving broadcast pattern. It might not reach quite as far on paper, but as the boat rocks, the tower stays illuminated within that wider beam.
That makes total sense. Now, let's talk about marine cell boosters because they are heavily marketed in this space. And I know a lot of people think they're the magic bullet.
They are completely misunderstood. The source clarifies that a booster is exclusively a nearshore enhancement tool. It is not an offshore solution. It absolutely cannot create a signal where none exists.
Right. If you're 30 miles out, amplifying 0 still gives you 0.
Precisely. A booster is just designed to take a usable but really weak signal and amplify it. But the installation is notoriously tricky.
Because of the inside and outside antennas.
Yeah, if you don't have adequate physical separation between the outside donor antenna that pulls the signal in and the inside broadcast antenna pushing it to your phone, you create oscillation.
Oscillation, that's like when you put a microphone too close to a speaker and it does that horrible screeching loop, right?
Exactly the same principle, just with radio waves. The inside antenna broadcasts the amplified signal, the outside antenna picks up that exact same transmission, feeds it back into the amplifier, and the system spirals into a massive interference loop.
Oh, wow. That sounds disastrous.
It ruins the whole setup. In fact, it raises the noise floor so severely that modern boosters will just automatically shut themselves down so they don't cripple the actual land-based cell tower.
Okay, so you've successfully navigated the physics. You have a moderate gain antenna matched to the vessel's roll. It's mounted high. Maybe you have a properly installed booster. You've captured this fragile coastal signal. But passing a single phone around the cabin as a hotspot isn't going to cut it right.
Yeah, not at all. You have to upgrade the brain of the network. Relying on a phone as a gateway is a severe bottleneck. The architecture demands a dedicated marine LTE, or 5G router.
Why is that so much better than a standard hotspot?
These units are built for the environment. They have stable, hardwired DC power, physical ports designed to integrate with those external marine antennas we just talked about, and the processing power to actually manage a complex network onboard.
The source guide mentions that a dedicated router allows for, quote, better separation of guest, crew, and operational traffic. Why is that separation so critical on the water? In a house, everyone just jumps on the same Wi-Fi.
Because nearshore connectivity isn't just about reaching a tower, it's a network design issue. On a boat, internet access is fundamentally tied to vessel safety. You are dealing with operational traffic, like navigation data, real-time weather files, vessel systems.
Well, if I need a weather update to avoid a storm, that needs to load instantly.
Exactly. Now imagine a guest in the cabin decides to stream a 4K movie, or someone's laptop starts a massive background update. On a flat, unmanaged network, those huge data streams will choke the bandwidth. Your weather download might time out.
And you're stuck blind.
Right. So a dedicated marine router uses VLANs or virtual local area networks and QoS protocols. It allows you to compartmentalize the traffic. The navigation systems get guaranteed priority routing, and they remain completely unaffected even if a guest is maxing out Netflix.
So what does this all mean? It means you are building a structured, dependable foundation before you ever head to deep water.
Yes. But eventually, no matter how perfectly optimized that cellular setup is or how high your antenna is, you hit the limits. The boat is officially offshore.
You run out of road, and you have to stop looking sideways to land and start looking up.
Enter the offshore continuity layer, marine satellite internet.
The transition from terrestrial to space, systems like Starlink Maritime and VS8.
Exactly. The source material highlights that for nearshore day boating, cellular is fine. But for yachts, charter vessels, workboats, satellite is absolutely non-negotiable. It's your reliability layer.
I compare this to driving. Cellular is like taking the local terrestrial roads. It's efficient, low latency, and cheap. But satellite is like jumping into an airplane when the roads physically run out.
That's a great way to put it. And satellite introduces entirely new variables, weather, physical obstructions on the boat, hardware quality.
Right, because not all satellite is the same. You've got Starlink, which is low Earth orbit, or LEO. Those are close to Earth and moving fast.
Yep, giving you massive bandwidth and low latency. But because they move, the dish needs a totally clear view of the sky. If a radar dome blocks the dish for a second as the boat turns, you get a micro drop in connection.
And then you have VSC, which is geosynchronous or GEO.
Right, those are parked way further out in space in a fixed spot. VSC has higher latency, but it's housed in a big, stabilized dome that physically tracks that one satellite. It gives you a guaranteed connection that won't fluctuate.
So it's not really a competition between them.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is exactly where many boaters waste time and money. They try to force cellular into an offshore role where it doesn't belong, or they argue about which satellite is best. The strongest marine setups don't treat cellular and satellite as competitors. They treat them as complementary layers.
So you have cellular near the coast, Starlink for high-speed offshore, and VSAT as the ultra-reliable backup.
Exactly.
But practically speaking, this introduces a massive operational headache. You have a cellular antenna, a 5G router, a Starlink dish, maybe a VSAT dome. How on earth do you manage swapping between all these without your Zoom call dropping or your movie buffering? I'm not running down to a server rack to flip switches.
And you shouldn't have to. That brings us to the master conductor of the whole system, the MDS blender.
The blender, I love that name.
It's perfect for what it does. It acts as a marine network WAN manager, a wide area network manager, and its core function isn't just switching between sources, it bonds them.
Bonds them. Okay, I think of this like a hybrid car. You don't have to pull over on the highway and manually throw a switch to go from the electric battery to the gas engine. Yeah. The car's computer just blends them together so the driver never feels a bump.
That is exactly what the MDS blender does. It can take your LTE and 5G, your Starlink, your VSAT, and combine them into one managed connection capable of up to 1 gigabit per second.
So it's not just failing over if one drops.
No, and that's a huge distinction in the source. We aren't talking about a simple failover switch that senses 5G died, drops your call, and takes 10 seconds to connect to Starlink. True bonding operates at the packet level. It splits your data stream across multiple links simultaneously.
Oh, wow. So some data goes over space and some goes over cell towers at the exact same time.
Yes. It constantly monitors packet loss and latency on every link in real time. If the vessel hits a wave and the cell antenna loses line of sight, the blender senses that in milliseconds and seamlessly routes the next data packets over Starlink. The user never experiences a freeze.
Here's where it gets really interesting. You aren't just extending range anymore. By blending terrestrial towers and low-orbit satellites at the packet level, you are engineering total network invincibility.
It really is. The source outlines a table of requirements for this. If you are just coastal cruising, maybe an LTE router bonded with a single Starlink works. But for a mission-critical charter, you need multiple WANs, multiple satellites, all woven together by the MDS blender managing the traffic.
You're taking systems with distinct physical limits and weaving them together so tightly the flaws just disappear.
Exactly.
Okay, let's step back and summarize this deep dive. The step-by-step upgrade path for conquering the offshore dead zone. First, get the receiver out of the cabin. Start with a marine cellular antenna matched to your boat's motion.
Right.
Second, upgrade the brain. Add a dedicated marine router, maybe a booster, for nearshore distribution and VLAN traffic separation. Third, move to the offshore continuity layer with satellite, like Starlink or VFAT, when you push past the physical horizon.
Yep, looking up instead of sideways.
And finally, unify the whole beast. Deploy a system like the MDS blender to actively bond those connections together.
It's a complete blueprint. And honestly, this layered hybrid architecture applies to any critical system in life. It's about knowing the physical limits of your primary tool and having a seamless backup ready to take over before the primary even fails. It's proactive resilience.
Proactive resilience. I love that. As we wrap up, there's a final concept I want you, the listener, to mull over. The text reveals how a platform like the MDS blender seamlessly bonds terrestrial towers and space satellites so the user never notices the shift.
Right.
But technology always shrinks, right? The hardware disappears over time. Consider a future where your own smartphone functions like an MDS blender. Imagine walking around as your own localized node, constantly and invisibly hopping between low-orbit space satellites, 5G towers, and localized Wi-Fi, all bonded at the packet level in your pocket.
I would change everything.
It really would. Could the entire concept of a cellular dead zone soon become a historical artifact, like something we have to explain to our grandchildren because they've never known a world constrained by the physical horizon?
It's definitely where the engineering is pointing.
Something to think about the next time you look at your phone and see 0 bars. Keep questioning the invisible systems around you, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.